meeting starts tomorrow, dig some money up. The Alderman Black said he was interested in Lynn. So let's field that bridge. I know you got it working on, but emergency vote on preventative maintenance. Get something.
Good evening. My name is Tom Mason. I've been in my whole life. I live in East Lynn. Garrett says ward councilor. My question is, Councilor Capano mentioned it earlier when he spoke, with this $5 or $6 million whole plan, rectify the problem. My question is, with this $106.5 million plan, eliminate entirely the problem. Can you say that with certainty?
So, just so that I understand the question, eliminating the problem meaning the CSO problem or the flooding problem?
The flooding problem.
So, I can't say that with certainty today, but I can tell you that the approach that would be recommended is to implement the project over time and then assess what the changes are at certain points along the project. So you make some improvements, you get an assessment of how well they're doing. If they're doing well, move on. If they're not, then you need to do some additional things to address the problem. So the program would have to be dynamic.
Based upon your earlier comment on that question, you weren't adverse to it. You just said, step if you try and see if it would work.
Right.
Right. Now, why isn't that being tossed about and thought about and debated? Because it's $5 million versus $106 million. It's a big difference. Lynn is not a rich, it's not a wealthy city. The average taxpayer here, or ratepayer, probably makes $45,000 a year. So why isn't A looked at first, then go to B? It just is a common sense, cost efficiency method to look at.
The plan as it's proposed right now is comprised of 5 or 6 different components. The approach, once we start to talk to DEP and EPA, the regulators, in terms of negotiating with them what the ultimate program looks like, it would be requested to build into the schedule doing just what you're talking about.
Every road job that's ever been done, I've seen, it's caused massive traffic wrecks, cops, details, you name it. You can actually say the Lynn Lake's not going to affect Lynn Lake like that?
Well, traffic will be impacted by construction, no question about it.
My next question is, your numbers say these percentages, where do these come from? You said they're just guessing, they're not even real or whatever. Who produced these 26% and 31%? Where do those percentages come from, the first year increase in the rate?
So they're not made up. They're actually done by financial experts that we have in the company, and they're done as on the basis of financial information that's provided by the
You
commission.
stated these numbers to Council upon these percentages, they mean nothing. It's just I don't know what correct if I'm wrong, you said these aren't the numbers that would be the actual numbers, so they're not the hard and firm numbers. We all know that. Because you can't project out 20 years or 10 years. There's other costs that we obviously don't even budget 10 years out, so it's the exact penny. We all know that.
Well, you try. You try based on what you know today.
So we did, and we saw that go 5 times. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is, what will the actual percentage increase be in year 1? Taxes going up next year, 5%. I think you read the paper. What would the water and sewer rate combined with that? Do we have a number?
Well, it all depends on how the commission chooses to assess the rates throughout the course of the project.
I sympathize with everybody here with the problems, don't get me wrong. But the problem is, you're talking about $106 million from one of the poorest cities in called spade, in the North Shore. Where's this money coming from? It's just going to burden future homeowners. It's going to burden everybody. And is there some modified version you guys have looked at, short of $106 million? Maybe $50 million or something. I don't know.
The plan itself is a significantly modified version than what the commission is required to do today based on the consent decree that they're involved with. If the commission had to meet the requirements of the consent decree that they've currently signed, the price would probably be double what you're looking
But
at.
do they have, is there an order forcing them to do that?
Yes.
There is. DEP or EPA?
Both.
Both.
Federal justice system.
So there's an order in place that you have to do this?
That's right.
Okay.
Not this plan. It's telling the city to do more than what this plan is recommending.
And this plan can't be done any cheaper. This is the most cost-effective way out there. There's no other alternative with that. Nothing.
In order to make this more cost-effective, it would be negotiated to do on an ongoing basis so that it could be made as affordable as possible.
Good one, sir. Just one last question. After spending, time and money involved and maybe hopefully providing relief, which nobody can guarantee, what percentage of increase of the overflow will be curtailed? Right now,
Percentage
94%
point
is
of
saying, what I understand from reading it from the material, is like 94% of capturing. I'll told not to believe that.
No, the capture rate is correct. It's the compliance rate that you can't confuse the two.
Our compliance rate is 85%, right?
No, the capture rate
Anthony,
is between 85 and 94%.
could I just ask you the capture rate, isn't there a presumption that is met by under EPA if a percentage is captured? There's a presumption that it meets the clean water standards?
There is, but back in 2000, the commission committed to eliminating 100% of their overflows. And that led to a consent decree. So the commission is under a consent decree to eliminate all overflows right now. Had your facilities plan back in 1990 taken the presumptive approach, which was eliminate 85%, and if that was found acceptable by EPA, you would have met that. But EPA and DEP did not agree to that, and based on the consent decree that you're currently under, the presumptive approach is not an alternative.
So this is not my question. Were you involved in the 2004 project? Did you guys meet the cost you anticipated when it began? Or how much over did you go? What percentage was it all off?
Actually, nothing was spent based on the 2004 plan because it was never addressed or approved by DEP or EPA. So nothing was spent that was recommended in that agreement.
In other words, the work that was done, it came in our budget, it came over. You know how much?
Someone from the commission might be better to answer that question.
The prior CSO work was done on.
Yeah, all the Eastland, downtown.
It was a $48 million project, $38 million into accomplish its goals and survive out of $48 million.
But what if it had become completion, would it have met that budget? What do you think might have
There
done?
were some change orders accompanying the contract, but we never got it.
The reason why it was terminated is because they weren't going to meet the goals of the contract, which would have required more money.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilor Ford, just excuse me, I'm going to be about the earlier comment by Ms. Wallace, I think it was.
I'll be very brief. This isn't about the program. This is what Russell Passwood said. I think that's a good point. That's something we can bring to the chairman. I'm sure he'll be responsive to a maintenance program like street sweeping or something. A lot of people do it themselves. I'm always calling Danny for the jetter truck that sucks out the drains, and it's not part of this program, but it sure can hurt. And I think Russell's correct, and I'll work with Danny to see if we can't get something organized like street sweeping. Thank you.
My name is Vivian. I'm third generation on Oakville Street at the Bennett Street end. And I just want to say that when it floods, my kids are trapped at school. They have no way to get home because they can't walk through the sewage water. And when we can't do dishes or take showers because our drains back up, they gurgle the whole time the street is flooded. Then the next day I have to walk through all that sewage on the sidewalk to bring my kids to school. I'm disabled. I shouldn't have to walk through piles of sand on sidewalks to get my kids to school. It's really bad. And you're flooded in, like you can't, all the streets surrounding that area, you can't, there's no way to get ditto. I just wanted to say that.
Hi, my name is Debbie Lacy. I live on Lowell Street. All we keep hearing is how much it's going to cost. Why don't you just do it and then worry about the cost?
My name is Larry Grogan, and I own a property on 19 Bennett Street, which is right on the corner of Commercial Street. I've been there since 1998. I've spoken to many people over the years. Frankly, you've worn me down. I gave up. I put gates down. I've spent a lot of money to keep this stuff out. But the reality is, it doesn't make a difference how much it costs. These people need to be satisfied. In this day and age, I don't care how poor the city is, how rich the city is, we have sewage running down the street with kids and schools and neighbors. It has to stop. My only question that I have is that in my research, and again, it's spotty, because like I said, between DEP and the Lynn water source, everybody's nice, Pete, Ray, everybody's been really good about it, but everybody's pointing the finger. So my question is quite simple. If we want this done, what are the next 3 steps that have to take place? The reason I'm asking is because when I called DEP, they said, oh, we're waiting for Lynn Sewer. They haven't completed their study. And then Lynn Sewer said, oh, no, we sent it in. It was 1974, and then in 1978, and then 1994, and 2001. The dates keep going and going. So tell me, how do we get it done? And make it 3 easy sentences. Who has to approve what, and how do we get it done so we don't have to sit here and talk about this? I mean, 1998, I've been listening to this, and these guys have listened to it for 3 generations. It's bullshit. That's $100 million at $15 a year. Just to show you, why, folks, not to make a difference how much they tell you it's going to cost. When I bought my building, my taxes were $25,000 a year. Today, they're $58,000 a year. So the sewage is going up, the water's going up. Just accept that. Let's get this shit off the street and let the kids play. And please, hold on.
Kukaraginas, 109 Upperville Street, and I just want to know, what's that?
Did you have a question, sir? Or?
Yeah, my question is simple. The process is, here's the consultant, we've got the plan. Who does he submit the plan to? Who approves the plan? And the steps in order to get it done. We know the problem. What's the steps to get it done? We've got a great plan, let's just say, for the sake that this is the plan. What does he do now? What does the city council, what does the Lynn Water and Sewer do now? What does the DEP do now?
We just received this less than 2, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And this is one of the first steps. We brought this, opened this for question and answer. That's not an answer, a question that I can answer, but it's certainly a rhetorical question.
The first step we were talking here, I think we have to finalize the plan for 10-year, 20-year. SRF funding, general bond. And then ultimately, the committee director decide to send it to the feds. And then the feds are going to take some time to review it and say it's good or bad or wrong. We have a bunch of money.
I'm just saying that, I understand that now, but they really, if you're going to get it done, you got to set dates and goals. Get it done.
And you someone said $15 a year. If you think you can spend $15 a year on this for $106 million, I mean,
That's not my point. I know.
That's simply not.
I know. I'm not sure that's a problem with you. That doesn't make a difference. I just want to get it done.
We don't do anything, we have to do something. But to say it's going to be $15 a year times 20 years, that's going to be
All right.
$106 million, that's $300.
You can, man.
That's all you realize.
Thank you, Dan.
Do I have to introduce myself again? Anyways, what sympathetic voice is, do you have children? Anybody here have children?
I think most people do.
See sewage coming into your home? When you see sewage coming into your home, how long do you have to live with this? That's all I'm asking. How long do we have to live with this? It's just not right. That's all I want to say.
Okay, so it seems like, you know, 3 potential immediate steps that the city could take with no green lighting of $106 million or anything. One is that the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission, given the Westland situation is an absolute flood emergency situation apparently, given the testimonial of all these people, who said that they've seen sewage running down the street. The immediate first step, you know, is to respond to the emergency, and it seems like the solution was already offered by many of these folks, which is to flush sewers. Is that, I mean, that's, and that means that people who are getting paid their 40 hours a week should be doing this. Like that, they have to, you know, do their job immediately because it's an emergency situation. So that's step number 1. I don't think that needs, you know, a public hearing or any more money or even a green lighting by the councilors. I think it really just needs, you know, some bosses to get on their workers to get working on this, right? So that's definitely step number 1. It's an emergency, flush the sewers, right? That's okay. So that's step number 1. It's an emergency. I really don't think right now there has to be a step number 2. I think a lot of it is that, you know, we're speculating on possibilities of spending a little bit more money, and we're worrying about it. Where if we don't spend the money, we almost have a guarantee that there will be an emergency situation in general with increased flood insurance costs, increased property damage, and overall a citizenry of Lynn who are basically pissed on. So let's deal. Let's take care of it. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. You can, Dan, please.
I think the federal government has redesignated the floodplain. Okay, so if you're in the floodplain, that's FEMA and EPA reallocating the line. It's nothing to do with the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission. I think if you put a 12-inch pipe in your street or a 60-inch pipe in your street, you're going to be within the flood. And you're going to owe your insurance company floodplain money. That's just a fact.
And they base it on elevation, correct?
Correct.
Doesn't matter what you have.
So meantime, times here, your home's here, you're in the floodplain. It's not so, it's completely irrelevant to the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission. You're going to be in the floodplain.
That doesn't mean that.
Okay,
I just enough to flush the sewer.
I didn't say that.
Okay, we'll move on because it is unrelated. That's a different topic. This city council, we had a hearing on the floodplain issue a few months back, and ma'am, please.
Okay, I'm not sure who this is going to be addressed to, but I consider myself a fairly intelligent person. And this gentleman's presentation with these barcodes did not give me one bit of information. When I hire a contractor, I expect him to give me a plan, having been presented with a plan street by street, section by section, on when they're going to start, what areas they're going to do for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. What are they going to do to repair the pipes that break as they're processing with the new one? Has that been presented as part of your plan to the city? And is this something that we can see, actually see where these pipes are going and when you're going to start and what you're going to do? For your $300,000, I didn't see one pipe going in the ground for your presentation. And I'm a visual person, so this is what I have to see to make a decision. Barcodes don't mean a damn thing to me. Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else?
But have you presented with a plan, year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years by this company?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I couldn't hear you.
Have you been presented with a plan? An actual plan, where you're going to start working?
No, ma'am, this is just the preliminary update of what they call a facilities plan. The city, the entire city, this is an update of the engineering required to make the improvements that the city was was engaged to do 15, 20 years ago, and then it stopped, and now they're updating that work. That's what this is. We haven't reached that stage. That doesn't happen. We can't just turn around and say next week, okay, now we'll give you $1 million to develop the next phase and go ahead. We have to follow a process, and this is part of that. So I hope that answers your question. Rick? Rick, before you, Tony Omolono, the engineer, would also like to comment on the lady's
The
question.
question is a good, the design, what you're talking about, where the pipes specifically go and how the impacts are the next phase of what happens in the process. To undertake that level of work now, without getting it approved by DEP and EPA, would be a very high risk. Because they may come back and say, we don't like your plan, we want you to do more. So it's really intended to not go and spend money without a real result until they get this, we get this part approved by them. So you're right, there should be lines on paper that show where the pipes are going to take place. That will happen, but it's not part of this phase.
And Tony, just to clarify, the water and sewer could also submit something less and see whether they approve it. Isn't that correct? Yes, thank you. Rick?
Thank you, Councilor Lozey. My name is Rick Stabbit. I live at 221 Verona Street in Lynn. I'm also a member of the Lynn School Committee. About a year ago, we moved Lynn School Administration down to Bennett Street. We've already had multiple incidents where school employees can't get access to that building because of the flooding. So now we're at a time where we're trying to develop that area around there, Bennett Street. We had one gentleman talk earlier about the impacts on his own company. And Alley Street, again, is another one, something about the East Coast seafood building, doing some work in there. Who wants to come to Lynn when their employees can't have access to their businesses? And that commercial real estate base is the backbone of the success of the city. Now, that being said, our residents that live around there, now I built a house back in the late 80s down on Main Street, right on the Saugus River. So I knew kind of what I was getting into when I moved down there. So I built that house so it was high enough that we really weren't impacted knowing that the tides came in. And that's something, as Dan alluded to, totally separate from this sewer and stormwater issue. You know, pipes here, the tide comes up, and there's nothing you can do about that except build around it. But our residents that are down there having to pump raw sewerage out of their basements is just, people can't live like that. And the price tag isn't going to go down as time goes on. And how are these people going to sell their houses when they have to sell it with, yeah, you know, every once in a while it floods, but these 10-year storms are now coming on a quarterly basis, it seems. And I don't see that reversing. We've got the sewer system, and, you know, those at Lynn Water and Sewer probably know this better than anybody, that is being taxed probably like never before. You know, we've got multifamily houses down in the Ward 6 area that have 10 people living in each unit that maybe years ago only had 5. And, you know, those people are flushing the toilets double now. So something's got to be done. And does this 106 project all but guarantee it's going to solve this problem?
The 106 project is really intended to focus on the CSOs. The important aspect of when the work is implemented will be to design the drainage system that separates the combined sewers in a way that it eliminates the flood.
Because I know that years ago, I oversaw the property of the church on the corner of Union and Chestnut, and we had a serious problem there with backups in the basement, to the point where we had a gate valve down there, and when you saw the heavy rains coming, somebody had to go down and close that gate valve because we had some kindergarten space down there and all. And if it wasn't closed, we got everything back up to those toilets. I mean, we had diapers from the neighborhood floating around. And, you know, that being said, we also had to remember that somebody reopened it because if somebody flushed the toilets from upstairs, it came through the existed. So as time went on, and we complained about it, they said separation, separation, and that alleviated the problem now. We're no longer down there, but I know for that property that separation alleviated that condition, and I'm hopeful that this will as well. But again, I know $106 million is an awful lot of money, but the price isn't going to go down. I don't see the problem going away. In fact, I only see it getting worse. Thank you.
My name is Emmett, and I'm on Neptune Street Court, from the school he's just talking about. They don't have entrance into the building. I don't have exit to my house without knee-high rubber Wellington boots on. I don't know what half these initials stand for. I know what the EPA stands for, and they are not protecting my environment. As far as it not having anything to do with insurance, if you can relieve this flooding, I don't have to put a claim in. If I don't have to put a claim in, my premiums don't go up. So it does have an effect. Everybody's talking about the backflow. You can put in bigger pipes, but until you put in separation, it's still, you know, I've dealt with the building inspectors before. Now, if I called the building inspector and the Board of Health in and had them take a look at the mildew and mold and toilet paper and toilet logs in my basement, they'd deem me uninhabitable and condemn my house, and I'd be on the street. I'd be living at my brother's table uptown. It's not good for our health. It's not good for our kids. I'd like to see a study done on what effect this does to our health, living in knee-deep toilet water. You know, it's been talked about and going on for a long time, and nothing's been being done in studies.
Mark DeShane, I live on 81 Orchard Street. I just want to come here in support of my neighbors. The flooding is not terrible in my house. I get a little bit in my basement in the corner, but I know the end of Orchard Street where it crosses Bennett is really bad. I do have to go to work that way. I work at Lynn Tech. I'm a teacher there, and I just want to come out and support my neighbors and say that something does need to be done about it. I don't know the answers. I'm not going to presume to know. So thank you guys. Thank everyone for being here tonight. I know it's tough to stand up there and take the slings and the arrows of angry neighbors, but you can't blame them. You know, they've been going on a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
City runs 60 Elmwood Avenue. I'm just wondering what has changed. I've been there since 1972. And in the last couple of years, it has gotten even worse again. When I first moved in there, the kids were going up the street in canoes. The last couple of years, it seems it's not going down after the high tide. So have they changed something on the streets and that, so there is more flooding going up to the middle of the street? That I've been flooded out twice and lost everything, so what has changed? Because you said after the high tide, it would go down in an hour. Doesn't happen anymore.
I don't think he said an hour, but are you, ma'am, you said Elmwood?
Elmwood Avenue, I've been there since
I'm not
1972.
familiar with it other than St. Michael's Hall,
Right,
correct?
down just past St. Michael's.
Is that near the, Dan, would you like to take a stab at her question?
I know the answer is the answer to your question. Well, I mean,
Okay. Our chief engineer, Anthony Marino. Ma'am, why don't you rephrase and ask your question to the engineer, chief engineer?
Oh, okay, I'm just wondering if something is...
That's okay, I understood your question. Two questions you asked.
All right.
The first one, no, nothing has changed over the years. This pipe work in that neighborhood is the same pipe work that's been there for 100 years, so there have not been any changes. The second question you had is the impact of how the tide affects that area. and certainly the tide does affect that area. Many times I've driven that during the storm events and looked at the different levels of what's on the roadway. And I do experience as the tide, we check the tide tops and look at when they're high, when they're low, and I do see them relieving. Maybe not within an hour, but yeah, tide cycle peaks off at a certain level and does take a while to get down. And again, it always depends upon the intensity of the storm. So in some storms that are more intense might take longer than others.
I've been here since '72, okay? And this in the last couple of years, like the last one, it's been out for 4 hours. And it's coming up more in the middle of the street. So something, and I don't know, like they said, whether the drains haven't been cleaned. I've also, like I said, been flooded out twice. But there is something that they've done with the switching system somewhere, because it just does not go down within, because you could almost guarantee after an hour it would be gone. The last few storms have been 4 or 5 hours. I work for the telephone company, and I had to drive to many a flight to get there. Like I say, it had gotten a little better as far as what they went down, so I didn't know if they directed something or not. But something needs to be done. My kids used to think it was great if they could go at the end of the street and swim in it. That might explain what's wrong with them. But seriously, it is our father's fault. And when I moved in '72, I've been hearing it's going to be fixed. This is not going to happen. And I don't think when it is fixed that I'm going to be around to see it, because I'm 64 years old now, so.
You're still young.
Yeah, but you know what, to have that getting in the house, just on our street alone, there is an awful lot of, and they think it might have something to do with the G and that. A lot of people that have been passed away with cancer and different medical problems. And that's, you know, right on that street alone, so. But it does, it really needs to be. My kids are grown, they don't live there anymore, but I do. So.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, another gentleman.
Hi, my name is Oscar Pacheco. I live in 51 West Neptune. I wanted to talk on behalf of my neighbors too. My street gets so flooded that we cannot enter in our houses. We cannot even get out. The car doesn't get into the driveway because it could stay there. And I know everybody is on the same page that we need to do something. How long would it take to do something? And I also would like to say something to the commission is there any other plan for emergency that could be done, you know, before we put in place the new plan that you guys are talking about?
Does anybody want to answer that question?
The majority of the immediate thing to do is to clear the sewage. The immediate.
Okay. Yes, there are immediate steps. Oscar, if you would like, you can call the water and sewer with, you know, any particular, if there's a blockage or anything like that, certainly give them a call.
I know the gentleman over there said there's $500 that may not be enough for whatever they have to do. So I would recommend the commission to see if there is any more that they can do for emergency in that.
I think that message has been communicated this evening, Oscar, by you and others, and which I thank you for. And I think that it is a challenge that the Lynn Water and Sewer will have to embark on to do more preventative maintenance on their drainage system. Thank you.
Sewage.
Well,
The sewage. Yeah, we can do it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Veronica Fisher. I live in the same state where we live this guy. I call everybody. I call police, I call fire station, I call water, I call city hall. Nobody come to help us. Believe me, you need to come. You know who coming? Only Peter come. I called him on the no, last time, before last water. We have in basement like this water. We cannot walk inside. And what you think? I have my husband who has problem with heart. He has heart. And he has to smell it, all smell from iron, like from heating. It's good. Or we have kids inside the house. How they work if we have kids inside the house. All smell is coming from basement, all smell is coming from outside because nobody comes. I called one time. Police help us to put something on the street, on the two sides. The people cannot drive because some people driving faster and all water is coming like this. And it's worse and worse. And some people they driving, they stop and inside the kids. How it's feeling if you're watching kids how they cry. Inside the car and water is coming up. Before last time we had 10 cars. Because they start the water coming on the afternoon, on midnight. People sleeping. 10 cars full water inside. That's, you need to do something about the West Neptune Street, please. Or if you know coming like emergency, you need to put something or policy that stay over there that the people cannot drive. I think that nobody comes to this street. Only some inspectors, they come in if they see the cans put on the water and then give the ticket for $50. I get that. It's not my fault. It is my fault. I was at work. Water is coming. Cans is coming in front of my house. And I have to pay $15. I'm not idiot. I'm working for my money, for my pocket, for my pay house. Pay taxes, pay water, pay everything. Nobody help me. If I'm sick, nobody can help. That's no fair for our street is not fair. The living, only people that don't help it. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Jean Rogers. I live at 2 River Street Place, and I've been there since 1988. And I'm a park ranger, and I came from work. So, a lot of these plans that people make, and I applaud your willingness to stand and talk with us, and for you to listen to all this stuff. It's really scary living in this neighborhood. I'm about to move because I can't keep it up. But what I want to know is, have you thought about global warming? And is this plan going to work for now, but not in 20 years, because it'll be outdated by then? Have you made the plan with the current models we have, with water rising, and with the city's intention to continue to accommodate so many people? You know, people are talking about building on GE's land, and you can only predict so much about build-outs, but have you thought about the plan working for the amount of time we'll be paying for it?
So to answer that question, to a degree at this point in time, yes, climate change will be taken into account during the design of the separation work. Right now, it's really, the plan and the modeling has been focused on the CSOs. So when it comes time to address the design storm, the frequency, the type of design that needs to be done, that will have to be taken into account.
George Esri, I live in Walden Street, West Lynn, lifetime resident. At one time at the West Lynn Post Office, we used to have bowling alleys. And we used to enjoy the family being able to go there and all. But eventually it got so bad and so many water pumps that they had to put down to keep their alleys, try to keep them fairly dry, that they finally got disgusted and moved out. So we lost a business actually because of the water situation. And I understand from the postal workers there that the problem is still there. They still have pumps down there, and they don't have to have very much rain to have those pumps pumping all the time. And they have to pump out onto the street in Walden Street. And I just think that actually that has caused that those people who were there for quite a few years and donated taxes and a lot of enjoyment to a lot of people, school children that also used to enjoy the bowling alleys, but that was taken away from them because of a serious water problem.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Wilson from West End. I was just wondering if there's any emergency funding or FEMA money that could be used in a situation where fecal matter comes down the street and it gives Lynn a bad name and it hurts all these people that have extreme plumbing problems. There must be some kind of emergency funding, either through EPA or grant money or even FEMA, that could be added to this money that's needed to lower the cost a little bit. Maybe somebody could respond to that.
Sure, we've applied in the past FEMA grants. Typically, the pool of money for the entire state is very short. I think last time the maximum municipality could get was like $200,000. It requires a match of 50% by the city. So we applied and ultimately I didn't think we were successful, but I don't believe there's a lot of FEMA money out there. We're going to certainly research it, but I don't think the federal government has millions of dollars to give in the county to just
Thank you for your question and your answer, Dan. Anybody else? Commissioner Ellis.
I'm glad to be here tonight with so many residents of Lynn from all over the city, and especially West Lynners. I was a city councilor for 12 years. And addressing the FEMA funds, actually, Council President doesn't know this yet, but I sent him a correspondence tonight to ask him to put on the agenda the Lynn Water and Sewer looking to get FEMA funding. So I researched the FEMA funding and called the state director. I'm waiting for a call back. And from my review of the funding, it looks like we qualify under two different programs that they have, one for frequent flooding and one for severe flooding. Those monies, we don't make application. We make application not directly to the federal government. We make it to the state, and then the state coordinator for local communities, which several of them have done this, send those requests for millions of dollars onto the federal government. You have a serious flooding impact. We've heard how it affects your lives, and I think those funds are good to go forward for, and I think we'll get something back that's substantial for that. So that'll be on the agenda at the next water and sewer meeting. The open meeting where I had to get notice to the chairperson so we can post that. We had some questions I just wrote down that people had. One person asked about Elmwood. Geez, I noticed the flooding's got more intense, and I agree with that. And what are the reasons for that? North South, we've had a lot of home construction since the 70s, where she originally started living there, and there was less flooding. That all contributed. People are using more water. The environment has, it's gotten much wetter. So the models that we base our plans on have all changed. And
might have had that would work for your area in the 70s, and those designs don't work anymore. So we've updated, they've done the swim model, a number of different numbers, and we're off into another model to look at a plan. So I agree, it has gotten worse, and we do have some maintenance issues. We did get an order of violation for that, and we're going to have to work to address that. We don't have enough staff to do the catch basin cleans and materials, so we'll have to address that. But the commission wants to do a good job for you, and the other ratepayers and who we work for, and this touches your lives directly. Financial plan, there are things we've done on the board to try to bring the finances down. I made a motion that we look at solar on the buildings to bring our electrical utilities costs down, which gets passed on to you. We're looking at putting better meters out so we can read the water that we're consuming and people are using, to make sure that we don't have people without meters, and the ones that have very old meters will pay their fair share, and that should help also with additional revenues. The plan you saw here of finances is not a financial plan. It's an engineering plan. So we still have yet to work with our people, Dave and different people in finances, and put together a true financial plan for the project. We've got some initial numbers from this, that this is the construction cost and it's a suggested phase, but we have to do a financial plan. And we want something that's in increments that are affordable to you. And also doing this plan, we're on several different orders, a federal court order called the consent decree. We're on the more recent violation orders that we have to respond to, and that's what we're doing here tonight. You're helping us respond. It's great that you're part of the process, and we're going to bring that plan forward and propose it to the federal government, the EPA, and state DEP, all those people that are part of that complaint, and seek approvals. And we're going to need to get some, also them to flex a little bit to allow us to do this plan and flex on that zero level. One of the questions was, what is the plan and when it will be done? And that's part of the affordability we'll look at. As you've heard for a 30-year plan, maybe $15 on your water bill annually to get it done sooner. For those people that say they haven't raw sewage impact them, maybe we'll have to do that sooner. It would be a good idea. If that's the case, it'd be $100 annually on the water bill. River Street area has a very unique flood problem. When I was a commissioner and city council in the past, I looked at that. We had a flapper put in to keep the salt water out. That doesn't work very efficiently. What you need is probably like a pump station. We have had studies done in the past, what would be better, what would work better, and they looked at having a pump station. I know I was down there during the flooding with 3 cars trapped, and I had my hip boots on, and the water was up above my knee to my thigh in the middle of the street. So you're getting some pretty large flooding there. You're not part of this plan right now, but we do have a consent decree for flooding in West Lynn, and so I can envision that you're going to have to be added to that plan with these requirements. So when we send it the plan, we'll make compliance. Some of you probably remember me coming along years ago when there was an opener in the federal court case, and you signed a piece of paper that you read that told, hey, I want the flood relief done in the neighborhood, in River Street neighborhood. And so those were heard by the federal court, and were part of the joiners in that, and so you have to be addressed. The information that we should get out to you, I think a lot of you have a lot of questions. And we have a very small website, maybe like other water and sewers that have gone through this process. They usually have you add information to the website, so you can go there and look and see what remedies you have and what help you have. We're probably also going to have to revisit how we do business there and get the facilities and staff in place so we can address them better. But I know we're all, even your commissioners are all Lynn residents. I think there's no Lynn resident in this area community that doesn't want to see your needs addressed. addressed to have that big of an impact. So I have faith in you, Lynn, that we'll move forward, and I think you're very important that you were here tonight. And if I can be of any help or anything in the book, I still have the same phone number I've always had, under Jesse and David Ellis. Give me a call. God bless you all.
This concludes this public hearing for information hearing, I should say. And I want to thank each and every one of you that have come out tonight. And this will be an ongoing process, and hopefully we'll see some relief sooner rather than later. Thank you for coming.